Welcome back to Interview Ninja Step 48. Storytelling for knowledge transfer, familiarity and ritual versus change, expectations and brand value, and learning most from work experience. As a Christmas job, Corben has worked for the past 3 years at a theatre in Bath called the Royal Theatre, and every year they run a performance called the Pantomime. It's the biggest earner, and right across the UK that kind of performance is equivalent to musicals on Broadway. It's their main earner and it keeps them going right through the year.
Not sure where it is. Okay, yes, you read the example, but read it aloud if you're going to do it.
Right.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just intrigued to see the typing.
Yeah, well, I think they're summarised. So, rewarding, reversing, strip lining, dummying up, okay, not okay, reviewing. These are all tactics, conversational tactics to use. So, I'm just, again.
I like it.
Yeah, well, you should. This is another resource. Do you remember in the context of what I was talking to you about? So we'll add that to our little resource pile. Learning is a bit like a buffet. You go, and if it's a good buffet, there's a lot there. But the thing is, if you overfill your plate, you're wasting it, and you won't digest the food.
Yeah.
So in the buffet of learning, you actually are allowed to go to the buffet as many times as you want and take off as much as you want, that you can actually eat at that time. And it might be in that next hour, or you might be going away for a day or two. So you might steal a couple of bits and pieces like apples or whatever at breakfast. You know how some people take stuff at breakfast in a hotel, wrap it up, and that's their lunch. Yeah. So you can do a little bit of that as well. But with learning, it's no good if you just gorge yourself and put more and more and more on your plate, because you can't get too much on a plate this week. And the mental plate is quite limited. And using that analogy, the food that you put on your mental plate rots at quite a rapid rate. So if I tell you facts now, you will only be able to absorb 2 or 3 facts. If I were to ask you to remember a number, like a telephone number, if it's 4 digits long, you can remember it maybe even remember it forever, sort of thing. If it's 6 digits long, you're more likely not to remember it for very long. And if it's 12 digits long, you may not even be able to remember it for 30 seconds because of the way the brain works.
Yeah.
So learning is just the same. So when you watch one of those YouTube videos and they bash out all sorts of facts and info, it's a complete waste of time if you expect to watch it once.
Know it.
And no, you won't.
No.
And that's why this method of teaching, I'm pacing it.
So that I don't overload
feeding
my
you
plate.
pieces.
Yes.
In a way. And the fact we're recording it gives you the opportunity to
come back. And
the food won't rot on the plate. The food's there.
Yeah.
That's a refrigerator of knowledge, if you like. So we're storing it.
Understanding your own rate of learning is important. Some people learn numbers very quickly. Some can read quickly and absorb the content. Some read quickly and absorb absolutely nothing. You can learn very, very quickly. If you touch the wrong wire or a hot plate or something, you'll learn that instantly. But learning these kinds of soft skills does take time. The contents of this course are drawn from 50 years of learning doing different kinds of work in different countries. I've had to cooperate with people in over 30 countries with all sorts of different cultures. Often the situations have been stressful and involved major changes in their working lives. So the soft skills you need in those situations are varied, but there are some common ones, and these are the ones that are in this course. My best guess is that it will take you at least 1 year of practice to absorb these soft skills. You can learn a lot of them jolly quickly, some of them at the end of watching each video.
All right. Now I'm letting this free flow,
Mm-hmm.
but I am very interested in the Panto, your Panto experience.
Yeah.
So just let me explain to people who don't know what a Panto.
Our focus so far has been on developing soft skills based on emotional and social intelligences. I want to help Corben and you develop skills that use a third kind of intelligence, which is called applied functional intelligence, or AFI, and sometimes wrongly called common sense. These skills typically relate to behavior and thinking in large groups like businesses and organizations. To become aware and conscious of what is going on in a collective work situation, it helps to understand what are called the fundamentals of that industry or that market. People are driven by motivations, which are explained in some detail in the Get the Job You Want course. So let's hope by now you understand motivation. But companies and organizations are usually driven by these fundamentals, unless there is a person at the top of the organization who makes the organization behave more like a person and sets ethical and moral standards. But normally organizations are completely mindless and heartless. They just function according to the fundamentals. You can see it in the way companies gradually notch up the prices for their existing customers, hoping they won't spot the increase. Or the way in daytime television advertising, they target the old and the vulnerable and their insecurities and their fear and their various other things. No person would behave like that, hopefully, but companies do it in this mindless, heartless way, and it just is a fact of life. That is what you need to understand, is the reality of living in the society that we do. The people there represent a company. They may think in their own way, but the company itself has a set of rules, and you can almost think of it as a corporate culture. Now, fundamentals are what drives a particular company or organization. By understanding them, you can see the differences between the behavior of the company as such and the people within that company. And that's going to help you a lot to present yourself in the right way that fits with a win for the company and a win for the people that you're talking to, and of course, a win for you. So always remember those three levels: you, the person you're talking to, and the company.
In the UK, there's a special type of theatre called the pantomime, Panto. It's based on shows that originally started in Italy in the medieval times, called the Commedie dell'arte.
To really understand an industry or company or government of a country, it helps to know a bit about its history. Giving somebody a lecture on a history can be very boring, so to achieve the knowledge transfer, I'm using a soft skill called storytelling or story structure or scene setting. It usually starts with something like "in the beginning there was," or more appropriate for Panto, theatre for children and their parents, we could start with "once upon a time."
Didn't know that.
And it had performers and jugglers and people who did mime. And then they found there was an interest in interaction with the audience. So If you can imagine a feudal situation where there's this sort of the count or whatever, and he's got his rich people at the head of the table, and then all the other people. So they would run a show. These people, these travelling players, would come in and do a kind of, acrobatics, juggling show and so on. And then they found that they could interact with the audience, and that's kind of where it stopped in Italy. But the British, and especially the English, for some reason, it really caught on in this country. And we had, who could we put on where people came with their kids rather than, just adults going, men and women having a laugh. So it adapted into a type of show that was good for the whole family to go to. And initially it was parents with their kids, and then it encompassed grandparents and so on. And it shaped up to be a kind of show with music and dancing and comedians and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
And then over the last 70 years, it kind of shaped itself into quite a rigid structure. So it's nearly always based on a fairy story.
If you think about organised human society, it is divided up into different cultures, usually based on geography, where they are on planet Earth, and countries, or it's influenced predominantly by religion. In the modern world of globalization, there are some cultures that gradually change and some that become more rigid. Even something as simple as a style of performance can get locked in because of people's expectations in that particular culture and of what they are going to see and hear next, and what may indeed transgress the rules of that society. Applied functional intelligence skills are about what to do as the market changes and you move from one country to another if you're an international player. If you're interviewing with a multinational organization, it could be that you will meet people from different cultures during the hiring process, and having flexibility and a sensitivity to what is acceptable and what is transgression is really important.
And there's rituals in it. Like there's always certain sentences. There's always certain songs. Yes. There's always a 10-minute thing where children come up onto the stage. There's this. And so pantos now, at least for the last 70 years, have been in this almost rigid structure, yes, which the people who put pantos on daren't deviate from. So there's very little innovation in the format, but what they do is
it tends to be each theatre that puts it on, and most theatres put one on every year. Like Bath especially religiously puts it on every year, and most theatres do what you say. They have their own rigid structures, but they're individual to that theatre most of the time. So for instance, the Bath one does something that I'm sure a lot of them do, which is get some kids up at the end to do some funny singing and say some funny lines, which everyone loves. But I think something that Bath do, I don't know if anywhere else does this, but feels like this is quite a local Bath thing to do, is they get, have you seen it before? They get a bench out and they sit on a bench and they get chased around the bench by a ghost. And they do it every year. The story has nothing to do with ghosts and nothing to do with this bench. And they just find a way to tie it in somehow, and it comes up every year. And I know lots of theatres do the "it's behind you" thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure people probably don't know about what that is.
Yeah.
But everyone goes.
Well, assume part of our audience knows what pantos are. Yeah.
He's behind you, and then the audience go, "Oh, what happens?" I don't even.
Well, no, the person on the stage says, "I'm looking for so and so. Where is he?" you know, and the person is in the background,
Yeah.
and the audience
And
says,
everyone goes,
he's behind
yes.
you, and then he turns around and the person is hidden, you know, and he
Yes.
says, oh no, he isn't.
Yes, and then everyone goes, oh yes, he is, and then they go back and forth with, oh no, he isn't, and oh yes. It's
Exactly.
very weird to people that have never seen it before, but we do that every single year without fail. The actors don't want to do it anymore. I was talking to the person who writes the script for the Bath one,
Okay.
and he's trying to wean out the bench thing because he's done it for like 20 years.
Right.
A ritualistic environment. This course draws on many years of learning, where understanding people is the focus. I range from psychiatry through philosophy to selling, and pick out the useful bits. My focus is to empower you as effectively and efficiently as possible. Our journey has to be selective because it is a boldly go Star Trek type of journey, from good to great and from great to excellent, where no one has gone before, or specifically lots of people have gone before, but this is a big new journey for your life adventure, and it really starts here. So, party on.